Hello everyone, Patrick into today's video. Going to have a look at where it's week to 10 days. In today's video, we'll also have a look at CFS V2 going to the end of November. And we're going to start off looking at what's happening in the stratosphere over North Pole and the Arctic and North Atlantic Oscillation. So a lot to be cramming in to today's video. Just to say about the ads before I get on with the video. So there's links to articles on the pages. Have a browse, visits, click through links. If there's any articles that you're interested in, you'll be helping us to pay for the website. Thanks very much for doing that. Very exciting day at GavsWebVids because the Christmas updates are starting this evening. It'll be around 7 p.m. this evening, 7 o'clock tonight. We'll have our first video for Christmas using the CFS model from metroseal.fr. We will have a look for the first time. We've done a couple of written posts, but the first time in video format, we'll have a look and see what the model is showing for Christmas. It's just a bit of fun, really, but I know a lot of you enjoy the Christmas updates. And once these update starts, we'll do them every second or third evening, so there'll be plenty of them coming up between now and Christmas. If the model's working right, we should be able to get the trend of what model is predicting for Christmas. And to go along with that, celebrate the beginning of the Christmas updates, we'll also be opening the Amazon shop, where you'll be able to go and do your Christmas shopping via GavsWebVids and Amazon if you would like to do that. I'll speak more about that at the start of the Christmas updates tonight. I think that's about it for the announcements. Myself and Quantum are doing a live chat tomorrow evening. That'll be 7 o'clock here at the website. We'll be taking your questions, so if you've got any questions about the weather that you'd like answered, do get them to us, or you can post them while we're doing the live event. I'll be keeping an eye on the comment box. Right, get on with the video then, and we're going to start off with the temperature at 30 HPA over the North Pole. Been fairly warm in terms of the stratospheric temperature so far this season. I haven't really seen a drop in temperature. Over the past few years, what's tended to happen is the black line, which is the current temperature for this year, has tended to a bit of a plunge around this time of year, going down to that sort of level. And having a cold stratosphere over the North Pole sort of drives the Arctic Oscillation negative. It produces the low pressure systems over the top of the North Pole that power the polar vortex, and the polar vortex is what gives us our westerlies through the Atlantic and the mid-latitude. So we haven't really seen a drop in the temperature over stratosphere over North Pole so far this season, and in fact what we have seen over the past couple of days is a little bit of a warming. Now this is a sudden stratospheric warming. One of those have to go up here, right up to the top of the temperature scale. This is temperature scale just here. We haven't done that, but we have seen a minor warming over the past couple of days, and that's quite unusual really at this time of year. This is a cooling time. You can tell that by the grey trend line that this is a time when the temperatures in the stratosphere over North Pole will typically be cooling until they reach their lowest point, which tends to be around early January. So to get a minor warming in terms of those stratospheric temperatures at the top of the atmosphere over the North Pole is quite unusual at this time of the year. And I think it is indicative of the fact that the Arctic Oscillation has been pretty negative over the past few weeks, which tells us there's been blocking. The polar vortex is pretty weak so far this year, very disorganised. And I think this warming that we've seen over the past few days is indicative of that. This is what's actually happening over the North Pole right now. This is from metroseal.fr. This is the GFS stratospheric temperature forecast for 10 HPA. And it's this area of green and yellow just here that is impacting into the pole, telling us that the temperatures are lifting up somewhat. So it isn't a big warming event, but temperatures are lifting up somewhat over the North Pole in the stratosphere. Let's run through and see what's forecast to happen. So we keep this warming maintained. It's a minor warming, but we maintain it through the first week of November. We go up to around the 9th of November. And the stratospheric temperature profile over North Pole is still looking generally warmer than you would expect it to do so at this point in the year. We go into the extended range of the GFS model, and it does cool down a little bit, but no dramatic plunge in temperature. Actually, it looks like those cold temperatures are pushing more down towards the Atlantic and into Europe, that part of the stratosphere. Over North Pole, yes, it is cool. Of course, you'd expect it to be so because it's a cooling time of year. but nothing out of the ordinary, and certainly not the huge drop in temperature that we've seen over the stratosphere over the North Pole over the past 2 or 3 years. So there's no sign at the moment that the polar vortex is going to really strengthen and start powering away through the course of November. It looks like, if anything, the polar vortex will probably be maintained at a fairly weak and disorganised level. So the Arctic Oscillation is an index that reflects the state of the atmosphere over the North Pole. It's not driving anything, it just tells you what the atmospheric setup is doing. When the Arctic Oscillation is positive, it tells you that you've got low pressure over the pole, which at this time of year would usually be associated with a strong polar vortex. When the Arctic Oscillation is negative, it tells you that the polar vortex is weak, it's disorganised, and you've probably got some forms of blocking as well. So we can go right way back into the summer with this Arctic Oscillation observed and forecast chart. The black line here is where we've been, and through most of the summer we was positive with the Arctic Oscillation. Round the start of October, though, we plunged down negative, and we stayed negative really throughout October. This will be our first negative AO month probably since April. The forecast part of the of this chart is these red lines just here. These are individual ensemble members of the GFS ensembles. You can see that generally staying negative through the first half of November. Later on, we do pick up back towards neutral, so that might just go along with that slight cooling that we saw in the extended part of the GFS model with its stratospheric temperature forecast. It does also record a little bit in the second week of November, which may coincide with the Arctic Oscillation drifting back up towards neutral, but there's no sign of going into very strong positive territory, no sign of going up towards here. And that's where we've been during November and December over the last few years, particularly, of course, last year when we had that exceptionally warm December. That was associated with a strongly positive Arctic Oscillation. There's no sign that we're having a repeat of that this year. At this stage, it doesn't necessarily mean that we won't get a repeat, but there's no sign of it at the moment. North Atlantic Oscillation, same idea. The black line tells us where we've been with the North Atlantic Oscillation through the summer. The red lines at the end where the North Atlantic Oscillation is forecast to go by the GFS ensembles. Whilst we've had this negative Arctic Oscillation, well, I've had all the blocking over pole during October. The North Atlantic Oscillation, which is an index that reflects the state of the atmosphere in the Atlantic rather than the North Pole, that's generally been positive. So we've had the two indexes sort of fighting one another a little bit, which is quite unusual, and probably accounts for why October hasn't been a desperately cool month. I think the temperature average is going to come out ever so slightly above average, mainly because of the last few days. But with such a negative Arctic oscillation, so much blocking, you would probably have expected quite a coldish month. Haven't really had that, and it's probably because the Atlantic hasn't been reflective of blocking either. However, the next few days, we are going to see the North Atlantic Oscillation going quite significantly negative, although towards the middle of November, it's starting to pick back up towards neutral, maybe slightly positive with the NAO. So that's the two indexes coinciding with one another to the middle part of November, both going back towards neutral. So I expect after a cold first week to November, we will probably see westerlies coming back, albeit at a weaker rate in the second week of the month. That's what the GFS ensembles are showing. Red line here is the 30-year temperature average, terms of the upper air temperatures. Very slightly milder than average at the moment, or warmer than average, although it's really foggy down in the south, but that'll be clearing as a cold front moves south today to clear all that fog away, and also clear the warm temperatures, and we're going to see a temperature drop over the next 24 hours. After that, it's just staying cooler or colder than average really throughout the first week of November. These are the dates on the bottom of the chart. So it's around the 10th of November. Looks like we're still colder than average. Beyond that, then the temperature goes back towards the average, goes back towards the red line. Quite a bit of scattering there, and few ensemble members are actually going a bit milder than average. So again, that does go along with the idea, but as we get through into the second week of November, you probably see milder temperatures and the westerlies beginning to come back. Remember, that is the extended range of a lot of those, so reliability is always questionable at that range. Precipitation, we spoke about this yesterday, got a lot of dry weather coming up over the next few days. As we get through into the weekend and into next week, looks like the rainfall spikes are coming back, and it will probably be cold enough for wintry conditions across parts of Scotland and North East England, particularly over high ground, but for Scotland, not exclusively so. There could even be some snow coming down to lower levels, I think, over the weekend and into next week across Scotland. A little bit of taste of winter. So just have a look at the generic charts, and we're going to start off with the GFS. So here we go for Friday. We're going to start off on Friday, 4th of November. We've got low pressure over the top of Scotland. That's going to be sinking southwards across the British Isles in towards Saturday. There it comes. It's going to be producing outbreaks of rain and spreading rain down across the country. Behind that low pressure, which starts putting a really cold, for the time of year anyway, really cold north to northeasterly wind. Not really cold by, if it's happening in January standards, but certainly for the time of year, that's going to be quite a potent north to northeasterly wind. This low pressure is being toned down by the GFS. Remember, yesterday it was blowing this up into quite a major feature and producing big rain event over the weekend down in the south. Doesn't look as bad as that now, but it will be producing outbreaks of rain Friday into Saturday. Then the low pressure goes off in towards Germany as we get into Sunday, and we're properly into that northerly flow. That's a cold wind. Follow the isobars back. The air is originating from Scandinavia, where we've got a cold pool of air. So although it will be moderated by the time of year and by the North Sea, which is relatively warm, it will still pack a bit of a punch at northerly winds, so you'll feel it, and it's going to be producing wintry showers for northern parts of the country. Just rain showers, I would have thought, down in the south, but expect a risk of night frost, most certainly. Into the early part of next week, and another low pressure looks like it's diving southwards, so that's interesting how these areas of low pressure are not going from west to east, as they would normally do, but north to south. Have another one of those coming up next week. That probably produces rain for England and Wales, maybe something more wintry for Scotland. We'll probably have to think about getting snow watch going, I would have thought, over the weekend. That's for the north, not for some part of the country. And then beyond that, into middle of next week, high pressure is re-establishing from the Atlantic, and it looks like the westerlies are beginning to return there as we go through up towards day 10, which is Friday 11th of November. As I said, getting to the second week, we probably see milder weather returning with those westerly winds. ECMWF is very similar. Low pressure sinking down across the country Friday into Saturday, producing outbreaks of rain. Winds turning into the northeast, bringing colder air down from the north into Sunday. We're all in that cold north to northeast flow. That's maintained into Monday and even into Tuesday. ECMWF is colder this morning than the GFS. Even into Tuesday, we're bringing in winds from the east at this point, with low pressure down to the southeast of the country. That's probably producing rain on the eastern coast. Anywhere at elevation mode in the north, probably a bit of a wintry mix with that. Will probably be a bit of a case of seeing what happens at the time, nowcasting really to see whether there's rain, sleet or snow going on. Middle part of next week finds high pressure building through. That'll be producing a lot of frost and fog, I would have thought. And then by day 10, again, maybe just signs that westerlies are starting to come back somewhat. So we are going to have this cold first week of November. Looks like the second week probably sees the cold easing off and just turning back to west a little bit with the winds. Finally, look at CFS-V2 for the next month. These are 500 millibar high denominators broken down into week periods. The first week period is the week that we're currently in, so the 31st of October through to 6th of November. Got high pressure out to the west and to the north of the country, low pressures to the east, and the winds are in from the north. So that's going to be a cold week coming up. Week 2, now this is quite interesting. This is from the 7th through to 13th of November, so that's second week of the month. And we maintain a cold flow with this. We've got low pressure to the east, we've got high pressure to the west and also to the northwest, and the flow again is coming from the north or northwesterly direction. So no return to milder westerlies there with CFS-V2 for that second week of the month. Then we go through to week 3, and now it does turn a bit milder. So the high pressure is out to the west and southwest of us, with the trough easing over Scandinavia. This is returning the flow back to the west, probably a little bit northwesterly, so it's not going to be desperately warm by any means. But it's a little bit milder and more Atlantic driven with the pattern there for week 3. And then week 4, which takes us to the end of the month, 21st through 27th of November. This one's placing a trough over the UK, so more unsettled, and it's elongating it down into Central Europe as well. So we're probably on the cold side of a jet stream there. That could be cold conditions coming back. The ridge is going into the central part of the Atlantic. I would have thought we're probably bringing the air down from Greenland there, maybe even further north. In fact, we might be bringing the air into that trough from Scandinavia. So that final week of November hints, I would have thought, that it could turn unsettled and cold. So maybe a few hints of some wintry conditions there final week of November. All in all, looking quite an interesting month, I have to say. A little bit different to what we've had over the past few years, most certainly, when we've tended to get a lot of mild weather, Atlantic-driven zonal conditions. No sort of hints of that for this month. So we're going to have this cold weather for the first week of November, probably some sort of moderation of the temperatures and a return to westerlies for a time. How long those last, not sure. It does look as though the polar vortex is going to be remaining quite weak and disorganised, certainly compared to recent years. So already quite interesting. Right, later on we will be starting the Christmas updates. That'll be around 7 o'clock this evening, so come back for that. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.